Well, in about 5 minutes, Dr. Chip Kyle is going to be pulling in. It's C.L. Kyle's son, the late C.L. Kyle. And he's a radiologist here in Cleveland, friend of mine. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great discussion.
Typical dad.
And you know, do you have any other videos of him?
Probably in my phone.
But when he was just his normal self?
You know, his decline was so gradual, we almost didn't realize it. And his normal self would have probably been before 2007 when he had an accident.
The accident, yeah.
An accident. Well, it was an event. It wasn't
Yeah,
really an
yeah.
It caused an accident.
Yeah. He got over that pretty good. I mean, it took him a while. They thought he was a goner, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. It was 50-50 at best.
Whenever you read a story in the newspaper or see something on television about somebody getting arrested, you naturally assume they're guilty. Unless the story's about you or someone you love, then you'll think differently. And you'll want a lawyer who will defend you. My name's Scott Canavis. If you or someone you love has been charged with a crime, call me. I'll return your phone calls, I'll work on your case, and I will defend you.
And it was much worse than that at some of the worst times. What happened to him, he had a splenic artery aneurysm, which is really rare, and it ruptured, and that's really rare. And it caused him to have really bad acute abdominal pain. That caused him to have a car wreck. And so here he was in a car wreck with abdominal pain. They didn't know what was happening. The EMTs, they knew me back in those days because I'd worked at Bradley for 12 years and then at BMH and then worked at Cleveland Community. And I had just started working at Erlanger, and they called me about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and I can't remember when it was, probably February, and said, Dr. Kyle, we got your mother in the car, in the ambulance. Your dad is being airlifted to Erlanger,
Golly.
and we're not sure if he's got a ruptured aortic aneurysm or a kidney stone and had a car wreck. And I thought,
What? Once.
But would you like us to drop your mom off at your house? And I said, yes, I will. So the ambulance came and met me at my home in southern Bradley County, and at that time I was working at Erlanger as a radiologist. So I knew all the back doors and the ins and outs, and I just drove there with my mom and my wife, took my mom and tried to take care of her as well as tactfully as possible, you know, and tenderly. She was in shock, and went back in the bowels of the ER and found my dad. I intercepted him on a gurney on the way to CT.
Was he awake?
Yeah, he was in bad pain, and he said, you know, I think I've got a ruptured aortic aneurysm, you know, and that's bad news. That's lethal a lot of the time. And so I was actually a radiologist at that hospital. I wasn't working that night, but I watched him get the CT scan. And we were looking for that aortic aneurysm to pop up, and it never did because he didn't have one. He had a ruptured splenic artery aneurysm, which is much smaller but still significant and really painful when they rupture. So dodged that bullet. That was number one. And then it was a very long hospitalization. It lasted 2 months. He got into some serious surgery, some serious postoperative complications. He barely survived surgery that night. And I remember they called me. So I was kind of hovering around giving legal advice, you know, medical legal advice. I was the guy calling the shots because my dad was unconscious and my mom didn't know what to do. So they called me at like 2 or 3 in the morning, maybe 4, and said, your daddy's blood pressure's dropping. We're taking him back to surgery. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know. And I can't remember if I talked to my mom that night or not. I don't think I woke her up. I don't think I tried to let her sleep. And I went back and I thought, well, this is it. You know, he's going to die. And when I got there, one of the surgeons came out and said, well, we've been through 23 units of blood. and he's still oozing, and there's pancreatic bleeding, and this and that and the other, and they said, there's 3 options. What did they say? Operate in the face of DIC, which is, DIC means diffuse intravascular coagulation. It's a bad coagulopathy. It means your blood won't clot normally because you've had an insult, usually from bleeding too much. The blood clotting mechanism is very complicated, and on one step depends on the next step, depends on the next step, and there's like 20 steps. And once you've gone through it, you're done. You can't clot anymore. Your blood won't clot, and you'll just bleed to death. So operating in the face of DIC is not really an option, and to do nothing was not really an option. And the other option, he said, was pack him. In other words, pack the wound with sponges, absorbent, sterile sponges, bring it tight, and don't go back no matter what, and hope he doesn't die. And I said, well, that's the only option. Let's do that.
That's why he had that protrusion right there for such a long time.
But well, he had a huge amount of edema, basically swelled up like a toad. That's just how you could say it in plain language. He was swollen up like this because his whole body was edematous because of all the bleeding and the DIC, and they couldn't bring the wound back together. They could not bring it together. It was impossible. So packing was a good idea. And you go back later when the edema goes down and slowly close the wound. Long story short, he survived that surgery. And he survived infection. He survived a heart attack. He survived being unconscious for 2 weeks, basically. He survived having an endotracheal tube down for 2 weeks. Because once the tube is down, the breathing tube, it'll damage the cords. And after about 2 weeks, you get a tracheostomy. He barely missed getting a tracheostomy. Anyway, it was a very long, complicated hospitalization for 2 months. He lost about maybe 3 months. He lost about 2 months of memory. He doesn't remember. And when they woke him up in the ICU, I remember he had me and Randy and Mark, my brothers, and he said, okay, Chip, you go get the car. And Randy, you take care of the nurses over here. And Mark, you do this. And he had like an escape plan. Here he's got tubes and lines, catheters. Unbelievable.
He made it after that, he was fine for a long time.
17 years.
It was 17 years?
17 years, yeah. Until the day he died. And it was funny, Dee, for a year, most people, you know, they age and they get worse. For the year after his surgery, he got better every month because he kept recovering and kept recovering and kept recovering.
He was always good-humored, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. He had a kind of a sly, witty sense of humor, yeah.
Almost like MASH. That
Yes.
dry humor.
A lot of times, yeah. A lot of times not so dry, but yeah. He was funny.
People liked CA because CA liked them. He made you feel like he liked you.
Yeah, he did. He taught us a lot. He taught us how to treat people. When he, you know, growing up, he would always treat people with extreme respect and kindness and humility, you know. And he made everybody, he loved country people because he was a country person,
Yeah.
I think. And he would tell me over and over again, these are good people, Chip, these are good people.
This is a picture of him at my old office, and I don't even remember why he was there. I just still got the picture.
I mean, take a peek at it. I'll tell you about when it was. I bet he looks about, see, he was 90 when he died.
I think I moved out of there in 2003.
He was 77 when he had that
That was a long time.
No,
later.
73. 73 when he had the aneurysm rupture. And this was before that. So he was in his late 60s or early 70s for sure.
I don't even know why he was there. Did he sell light bulbs?
No,
I don't, with the Lions Club or anything?
No.
I'm not sure why he was there, but that's my old office.
Where was that located?
On Guthrie Drive.
Yeah.
Can you get that, Gwen? That was my old office. Now, why he was there, I don't remember. I really don't remember. I have no clue. But I've had this picture back there in the kitchen ever since then. You can see I've got pinholes in it.
Yeah, yeah.
So today's May the 4th,
May the 4th.
and compliments of Toby Pendergrass, we
Yes.
have the Star Wars Millennium Falcon.
Do you remember what year that was when that movie came out?
I was probably maybe 74,
77.
77.
August of 77, because I remember going to it.
Where did you go?
Well, it's a Habitat of Humanity or something.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that now.
yeah.
There?
Yeah.
I'm not sure the name of that little road that connects.
I was in there the other day and I noticed the floor
Yeah.
slanted a little bit, and I thought, oh, I forgot this was a
That was
movie
it.
theater.
I remember watching like a 2-minute promotional blurb on some TV show, and it maybe like Johnny Carson or something like that. And they were interviewing Hamill and some of the other people, and they said, "Yeah, this is going to be." I thought that looks like fun. That'll be good. I'm going to go see that. So me and a bunch of my buddies. It was my junior year, in between junior and senior year at Cleveland High. And we thought we'd all go in there and watch that thing. We waited too late to get tickets. We were on the front row, the very front row.
You
We
sit
had,
like
and we
this.
thought we were going to watch some Buck
Yeah.
Rogers grade B
Yeah.
science fiction movie. It was unbelievable.
That
Just
was what,
unbelievable.
one of 3 or 4? Was a trilogy, right?
The first 3 were really good.
Yeah.
I think that one technically was episode 4. That's what they called it.
Okay, yeah.
And anyway, so it goes on forever and ever. But the first 3 were the good ones.
If
The
we'd
rest,
have
I-
known then what we know now, we'd have gotten into computers heavily, wouldn't we?
I guess so.
Because we didn't, that was all what we thought was really science fiction. And a lot of that's not even, these even look like the robots now they got.
That's true. They look like Elon's robots.
Yeah. Well, you think
They
that,
do.
you have a electric cars, any electric cars?
It's funny you should ask that. Last December, it was time for one of my cars to reach its end of life, realistically. I didn't want to let go. I liked it. But we traded it. Well, actually, I sold it to a friend who needed it more than a trade. And I bought a Tesla Y model. My son-in-law, Casey, has had one for 2 or 3 years, and so I've gotten some experience with it. And actually, when we go visit some of my kids out west, Washington and California, the rental car wanted to rent me a electric car, and I thought, okay, fine. I got Casey to call in case something goes crazy. I'll do it, and it was great. I loved it. It was great driving.
Did you do any of the auto driving where you do?
It comes with a promotion, so you get it for free for like 3 months, and I was really hesitant.
Yeah.
Really hesitant, because it has an autopilot, and then it has full self-driving. And autopilot is just like cruise control.
Just helps you or something.
It's dangerous. It will wreck you. But the full self-driving, it's scary. It will take you where you want to go. I tested it out. I came up to a 3-way intersection, okay, and let the car drive itself. So there was unstopped traffic going 2 different directions on this busy road, and it came up to a stop sign, and it had to pick when to go.
And you're like this, right? Getting ready.
I'm like this, ready to grab it, because I don't know what this thing's going to do. It comes to a stop. It edges up 10 or 15 feet like you would.
Yeah.
It looks like it's thinking. And there's cars coming. And then at a time when I didn't think it would go, it went. And it went right into traffic. I thought, oh my gosh. So I said, okay, drive home. And it took me home. Didn't go up the
That's
driveway. but
unbelievable, isn't it?
It is unbelievable. But it's better at driving than I am. It may not go as quickly as I want to. It may not pass when I want it to pass, but it's safer than I am.
Well, that would really help people in the future with kids that are just starting to drive. Would you rather your 16-year-old kids ride in one that's on auto, or would you rather them?
Oh, there's no doubt, but that's a two-edged sword. And the reason is these cars are so fast. They are so ridiculously fast, and they get there so quickly. I scratched around on ChatGPT and asked about the equivalent horsepower of my car, and it's over 500. It's just ridiculous.
There's no need for that, is there?
Well, I mean, it's like a rocket engine or a jet engine compared to a propeller plane.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference to me. They're so much faster, and they get there so quickly that it's really scary, and you have to be extremely careful.
I rode in one, and the guy put it in that ludicrous speed, and we were just
You were
we
with
were
somebody?
just there,
Yeah.
just there.
So did it make you sick to your
Oh,
stomach?
it was. I didn't.
It's
There was
nauseating.
no way that.
Yeah, it's
that-
very- it'll
There's
make-
no way that anything should be that fast. There's no point in it.
Yeah. The only way not to be nauseated is to be driving.
I don't know how they'd stop a deer coming down the road. I mean, because the deer will just. I mean, what happens then? Does it go through the windshield?
I guess.
Because it's not going to see the deer coming.
Yeah,
I hadn't figured that one out.
I've seen that happen around here. Deer's going through windshields. It's real. It's really scary.
Nowadays the deers, we'll have 4 or 5 in our yard just walking around like nothing's going on.
Yeah.
All the dogs just bark. But Star Wars was one of those things that I really didn't get into, but it's more of a nostalgic thing.
Yeah,
It
it
is.
is now. It is now for some people. It got me personally. It got so bad as more and more and more movies. They just kind of ruined it.
Right.
Especially in my opinion, in the last few years, it's just I don't even give it a second look.
Well, how come you went into medical rather than computers during that era? Was that because CA was a urologist?
Yeah, I grew up going to the hospital with him and looking at his surgery books, and I thought it was interesting, and I just liked anatomy. I liked biology, and I thought it would be really interesting to be a surgeon, which I of course didn't do, but I liked medicine. I thought I would. I liked all the stuff you had to do to get there. Most people went through chemistry or biology, and I liked organic chemistry, which was really tough for most people. And I wasn't more intelligent than anybody else by any means, and I couldn't do math worth a flip, but you didn't have to do a lot of math to go to medical school back then. So I liked biology, I liked anatomy, I liked chemistry, I liked the things you had to do to get to medical school, and I was fortunate. I got in and did okay. Met a lot of good people.
You're the only one of the 3, though, that went to medical school.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, Randy went to nursing school. Randy
Oh,
finished.
that's right. That's right.
He's an RN.
Yeah.
And Mark went into finance, completely not medical, but that's just the way it goes. Some people.
Your dad had a finance mind, though. He was sort of
He did.
into that.
He did.
Business and.
He did. He loved number. When he got through all his medical stuff, with that accident happened to him after he retired. But before he retired, he was full on into his career. But right after he retired in his early 60s, he started studying finance and stocks and investing, and just made a hobby out of it. And got
He
really good
enjoyed
at
that as a discussion and sort of a.
it. Yeah, he did.
Now was he from Memphis?
From Memphis?
Yeah, or he
No.
went to school in Memphis.
He went to school. Oh, he only went to school in Memphis, actually. He went to school,
No, he was from.
he's from here, Bradley County.
Right, but he went to school in Memphis.
Yes, he did. This is how it went. He went to medical school in Memphis. I mean, he went to college at Tennessee Wesleyan and Tennessee Tech, both of those schools. And then he was accepted to medical school and went to Memphis and spent 3 years in Memphis. And back then they went through medical school in 3 years. And then he was doing an internship in Chattanooga at Erlanger. So right after you finish medical school, you go into 1 year of a rotating or specialized internship. And he was doing that in surgery at Erlanger, which is where I was born. So I was conceived, I guess, during the last part of his medical school. And I was born at Erlanger when he was an intern, the first year after medical school. And right after that, I was born in October, and residencies began and ended generally on July 1st. So that next July, he went to Memphis, took me, of course, and we lived there, the 3 of us. Then that in Memphis, during his 3-year urology residency, is where Randy and Mark, my brothers, were born, both of them. I remember Mark being born, and I remember both of them. I remember Memphis pretty well. I was three when we left Memphis and came back here in 1964.
You start remembering stuff when you're about 3 or 4, don't you? Just
Yeah.
pieces and parts, not really.
I can, yeah.
Just slight memories of stuff.
I can remember telling people I'm three. I don't remember Memphis very well. I remember the trees.
I remember saying I'm 4.
Yeah.
A 4.
Yeah. I remember three. The fingers, and I remember Memphis. It was beautiful. Lots of big trees, big beautiful trees along those big divided boulevards. They call them Parkway East, Parkway North, Parkway. It used to be kind of the bypass. That was a pretty bypass around Memphis back then.
I went to that hotel where the ducks come
Peabody.
in.
Yeah.
Peabody, yeah.
Right.
And went to some famous barbecue place, I remember.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I never can think of the name of that. But I remember walking in.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It was famous.
Yeah.
It didn't taste much, everybody claims famous barbecue, but it's all about the same to me.
Yeah, some are different. I can't remember the name of the place, golly. But Beale Street was a big deal, because of its history and music. It was pretty
Elvis.
It was pretty run down when I got there.
It was run down when I was there.
Yeah.
Almost dangerous.
What year did you go?
I probably went in 91, something like that.
91, yeah. That's right after
I went
left.
down to, I can't remember, I was with Gene Officer. I think we went down to Tunica. That was when they had those casinos but no motels. They just started new.
I went back to Memphis for a class, a medical school class reunion about a year ago.
Memphis is a long ways away. I mean, it's like
Takes forever.
forever, especially from Nashville there. It's
a long It's
drive.
a long 200 miles. It feels like 500.
It does.
But it used to be longer. Have you ever driven Highway 72 all the way to Memphis?
Yes, I have.
That takes forever. You did?
Yeah, I built a motel and I bought furniture from a guy in Moscow, Tennessee.
Okay.
Just outside of Memphis, called Moscow, Tennessee.
I remember Moscow, the name. I don't
And,
remember going there.
I bought it out of his basement. I've never have been quite sure if that was all up and above board, but
Yeah, but you got the furniture.
I got the furniture. Moscow, Tennessee. I don't know how that would have gotten that name.
That used to be the way to get from
Yeah.
Memphis to here. Poplar, I drove it and paid attention to it one day. If Poplar, which goes right through downtown, if you get on Poplar and you head this way and don't quit, that turns into Highway 72, and that eventually goes down to...
I think maybe they upgraded one of those roads that makes it even a little quicker. And I've gone over to Meridian, Mississippi,
Okay, I remember that
and
name.
that's where they make the telephone poles,
Okay.
and gone to that casino up there, the Golden Moon. It's an Indian reservation right above
Okay.
Meridian.
That's how it can be a casino. I get it.
So I know
Yeah.
that's one, because that's the way I've gone several times that way.
Yeah, but it still takes forever. That's an interesting way. That's how my dad came back. That's how we drove back at night. I can remember that trip.
Would you have gone into medical if you had to do it all over again?
Wow, that's a good question.
My son is trying to take his MTAC.
Good for him.
MCAT.
MCAT. Yeah, that's admirable. It's tough. Medicine. My dad always said the golden age of medicine ended right after he got there. Right after he got there, before the government got involved in insurance with Medicare and Medicaid and all that. And it was the opposite. It was just the opposite back then for doctors. Medicare and Medicaid were the bad insurance. You didn't want patients on that because you'd get paid so little to do your work. And private insurance was a better way to make your income. But I mean, Daddy, he saw patients that could pay and patients that couldn't pay. And you never know how they would, some people would just barter with chickens, bring eggs. Sometimes he would come home with moonshine in a canning jar, in a quart canning jar. And every year, at our house for years. I mean, this must have been a decade. All my life growing up, there would be a fruit stack cake, and one of his patients would give that to him, and I never knew who it was. And a few years ago, I don't know how we got together on Facebook. I never do Facebook. Tom Silver was this lady's son. And he reached out to me and found me, and we started talking. He said, my mom loved your dad. And he basically saved her life, and he told me how she had a really bad kidney infection, and detailed history of her illness. And it was really sweet. And she's the lady who made that fruit stack cake for so many years, every Christmas. He wrote a beautiful little tribute, and then he texted it to me. He said, is this too much? Do you think this is too much? And it's just beautiful. I said, no, it wasn't too much. I read the whole thing. At my dad's funeral, I read the whole thing. It's just like 2
You
paragraphs
did his
long.
eulogy, didn't you?
I guess I kind of did. I helped. So there were the pastors from Broad Street were there, and they were incredible. They did a great job with that service. It was a beautiful service, but it was very atypical. Very atypical, because my dad wanted certain things done specific ways. He wanted a traditional Methodist service. He wanted certain hymns sung, and He Leadeth Me was one of them. His grandmother, and I didn't know, I learned a lot from my dad the last week or two of his life. His grandmother would sing this hymn, and I had no idea. And he specifically, I wanted to bring this. I just had some notes from before the funeral, and he had, in the garden. She would sing in the garden, and He Leadeth Me, and he wanted those hymns specifically to be included. He didn't want a procession from the church to the gravesite. He didn't want that. That didn't happen. He wanted to be cremated. He didn't want a burial service. He didn't want anybody from the funeral home there in the church. So there wasn't.
Now, some of that's odd, isn't it? A little odd?
It felt odd.
Because he never was a deep thinker like that, really, that I knew.
Oh,
evidently he was.
He did, and those things were kind of odd, but that's what he wanted. That's
Was he a little OCD?
Very OCD. Yeah. Well, maybe not very, but yes, he was OCD. To me, I mean.
Me and him went to lunch. I'll bet you have no idea how many times me and him went to lunch. Just me and him.
No.
I'll bet 20 times,
That's
25
good.
times.
That means he really liked you.
He seemed like he did. I don't know if he did or not, but he made me think he did. He'd call and say, Dee, how about, and he'd do his hands like this. He'd say,
that's right.
He'd say,
That's
Dee,
right.
I'd like to come out here, and we'd go to the country club in the basement.
Yeah.
He'd say.
Yeah. That's him.
But he'd go anywhere he
Those
wanted
are his
to go.
mannerisms.
He wasn't picky about eating.
No, he wasn't picky. No, but he knew what he wanted once he got there.
Yeah,
Usually corned beef or something like that. Something terribly
He
unhealthy.
liked a lot of soups and stuff.
Yeah.
He was a big eater.
He did love to eat. He loved to eat stuff that had a lot of salt on it. Paul Kimball told me one time, I was watching your dad eat. Cecil Kimball's son, Paul, was in my high school class. He said, I don't know where he was. He saw my dad eating lunch. He said, he salted country ham. Chip, can you believe? I've never seen anybody salt country ham.
And him a doctor.
Oh, that didn't matter. He had a heart attack when he was like 52 or 54. And I was the third year medical student. And he went down to Birmingham to have a cabbage, and he was really worried about it. He had really bad eating habits. And for about 2 years afterward, he was watching this Pritikin guy and into the Pritikin diet and 30 grams of fat a day. And he was, he shaped up. He lost like 40 pounds.
Was he ever overweight at all? Every time I've known him, he was thin.
Well, he was 6'3" before he ever got sick. So he could really carry weight very easily, and you couldn't tell it, but he got over, because when I was a kid, and that guy was slim. He was a giant tall man to me. Yeah. And he was very thin and very strong. And so he packed on a lot of pounds over the years. But you just probably couldn't tell it unless you knew him real well from when he was younger, which I did. You know. I
Do you
can
think
remember
being do you think being the oldest son, you knew him different? You ever wonder about that?
maybe just because I knew him longer.
Or do you think parents are? Would you raise your parents different today than you did your kids?
I would attempt.
Would it be different?
Yeah. I
Would you be a different person to them? You ever wonder about that?
Yeah, I would try to treat them as equally as possible, and I think unconsciously people tend to give the first one a little bit more attention. And it's very difficult also for kids that came years apart. Like my son is like 6 or 8 years older than our daughter, our first daughter, and that was tough. So yeah, if I could do it again, I would do several things more different.
I don't know if you can treat them the same because they're different.
No, what I mean is to pay more attention to them so that one doesn't feel like they're being overlooked or excluded. Or I think that happens unconsciously to people. Usually, I think the firstborn gets the best deal because they get more attention because they're new and the first one, and that's always special.
By the time you get to the third or the fourth one, you'll let them eat dirt, won't you?
Yeah, maybe that's why they're tough.
They say the third-born child is is it the second one that's the toughest? Something like that.
I don't know. It's all above my head.
But I believe we'd raise kids different depending on what age we are.
Yes.
I believe it would be different. I'd raise them different now than I would if I was 20 or something like that. You'd probably be more stricter if you're in your 20s versus 40s.
Maybe. I think it would be harder to raise kids today. I think for society is just getting really dangerous in a lot of ways.
It really is. The questions they have now, we wouldn't even thought they were questions.
It's not the same world as it was just 10 years ago. It's amazing. I mean, it's tough. It's hard to raise kids well at any time, but especially now.
And so many are raising them now with single parents and split up families.
Yes, that's hard. Really hard.
And maybe some families are better off they're better off to not be together if they're going to fuss all the time.
Well, maybe so. That's a really hard call to make. I don't know.
That'd be a hard one. I couldn't make it, could you? I mean, I wouldn't know what.
I'm not a judge. I'm glad I'm not a judge.
Could you have ever been a lawyer or a judge?
No. I mean, I used to think about it a little bit. I couldn't deal with the combat that they have to deal with, and the human social pathology they have to deal with every day.
And people's problems.
Yes, I couldn't do that or be a counselor or a psychologist. No way, I would kill me.
I don't know how I could be a psychologist. I'd want to. I don't know. I'd just be in turmoil all the time.
I would too. My youngest daughter is a clinical psychologist. She got a PhD, but if you're in that world, if you teach, you're a PhD, and if you treat, you're a PsyD. So she's a PsyD, and she clinically treats people. I don't know how she does it. I don't know.
So she treats them for psychological?
Mm-hmm. She'll interview them and talk to them and get to know their issues really well and counsel them about how to handle those issues to give them a better life.
She can prescribe medicine, or is that
That's a psychiatrist. So if you go to medical school first and you learn about the physiology and the pharmacology of all those psychoactive drugs, then you can prescribe medications. Psychologists do everything but prescribe medications. So they'll do psychotherapy and counseling, but they don't prescribe medication. So they could refer to a psychiatrist if they thought. I know that there's times when they believe patients would benefit from certain medications, and they can they do refer them to a psychiatrist and make a recommendation, and then the psychiatrist either agrees or disagrees, and that's how that's done. As far as
I go to a workaholic counselor.
You do? How's it going?
It's not going that good. I'm a little better than I was, but I think I'd have got there anyway.
You're still working too much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I believe I would have slowed down. But he gives you he's a counselor.
Okay.
I think that's one step below a psychologist, and that's one step below a psychiatrist.
I
All
guess
he
you
can do
could-
is just sort of give you recommendations or something.
Okay.
Or just listen.
Well, I guess that's what all of them do, is listen. Everybody listens.
Yeah, he'll give me
Hopefully.
some coping skills, some stuff to think about. But I think those people can really look into you and see you different than you can see yourself. I think they do have some training.
Yeah,
I mean, some obvious. I
they
believe
do.
there is some training. in
I
there.
believe so too.
Just like any other trade. I
Of
guess.
course. Yeah, sure.
But I could have gotten into psychology pretty good, I think. I
liked it when I studied it. I mean, it's fascinating how people think and why they behave certain ways, and Pavlov's dogs and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's fascinating, but I couldn't do it. Psychiatry was my worst grade in medical school. It's the only C I made in medical school. I did terrible at it.
How did you go about knowing? Now, radiologist, that's like, what, 13 years?
Well, no, I mean, it's a lot of years. Back when I was doing it, the way postgraduate medical education goes is you do your 3 or 4 years of medical school, and then depending on the program, you do maybe a year of internship like my dad did. I did too. And then you'll do a 3 or 4 or 5 year residency. And then sometimes you do a fellowship after that. A fellowship is subspecialized training in a specific area in which you train. So for like radiology, when I was finishing, people were just starting to do fellowships, 1 or 2 year fellowships in things like nuclear medicine, neuroradiology, the brain and the spinal cord, MSK, musculoskeletal radiology, GI radiology, chest radiology, you name it. Now it's interventional and all types of subtypes of interventional radiology where people are sticking tubes and wires and electrodes and radioactive substances and lasers and all kinds of things in the body to do certain things and perform certain procedures or stop bleeding or, you name it, kill cancer. You can get very, very, very subspecialized. And you can train. A friend of mine was training. He did internal medicine first. That's one residency. Then he did radiology, and then he did neuroradiology fellowship, and then he did nuclear medicine fellowship. And I think his wife finally made him quit. Stop, just go to work.
Professional
He must
student.
have been 32 or 33. But he's one of the best radiologists that I know.
I don't guess there's a way to shorten that stuff, is there?
I don't know.
Because you got to have training.
I don't know how. Yeah. I mean, some people can make it through medical school in 1 year less or college in 1 year less, but why would you want to do that? Why would you want to intentionally shave a year off of so you can get to work earlier, work a year longer? Yeah. I wouldn't recommend it. Some of my buddies in medical school did that. My daughter did that. My daughter went through college in 3 years. One of my daughters, Christina, she's pretty amazing. She's an ER doc. She did an ER residency.
That's what Dee wants to do, little
Yeah.
D. He wants to be an ER doctor.
ER doctors are tough. They are tough individuals. They're like policemen. They see people at their best and at their worst, but mainly at their worst and their most needy time.
He says he doesn't. The only reason he might not is that most of them have swing shifts. Is that right?
Well, you have to. You have to because it's a 24-hour-a-day thing. So unless you're just real fortunate and you get the morning shift or the afternoon shift, someone has to work in the evening and someone has to work the graveyard overnight.
So you just have to have somebody say, "Oh, I really want to work the third shift."
Some people like it. Some people like it then, and they'll, they work out a good schedule where they'll say, "Well, I'll work 10 or 8 third shifts this month, and then I'll have the rest of the time off." So they're working 8 of the nights, and they arrange it different ways.
On MASH, they were sort of the ER doctor, weren't they? Or
I would say they were much more than the ER doctor. They were they would stabilize patients. They would do definitive surgery on some of them. If their bowels were half blown out and they could repair it and reattach them or anastomose them so that they could survive. They were doing the definitive surgery. But you had to do the ER part first. And, I think
I was watching MASH one night, and there were the mobile
Army Surgical
Army
Hospital.
Surgical Hospital.
Right.
But they had to go one episode to the front line, and the front line had I guess like the hospital or it was the medical area of the front line, and they were doing the first stuff.
Okay.
I mean, like
Yeah.
stop the bleeding
Right.
before they put them on the helicopter to take them over to MASH.
Right.
I guess that was done by the
medics and the
the
EMTs.
medics. Medics.
Anybody who was there, or anybody who was there to put their hand on the bleeding.
Right. That was all it was. Stop that and keep them alive. Keep them alive and get them on.
Yeah.
But the ER would be. But now they're probably doing that. Now the EMTs probably do that.
Of course.
That part.
Yeah, they do. They do.
And then the ambulance would do the MASH stuff, and then the ER. I don't know how that would work.
How it works is they do things as fast as possible. There's the thing called the golden hour, which, and if you can start as much definitive treatment as possible within that hour, they do much better and survive better. And I remember Ralph Buckner Sr. used to tell me when he was alive, he said he would transport people to Erlanger in the back of his ambulance, and he would call them and say, I'm going to be there in, I don't know, something ridiculous, 20 minutes. Tell them I'll be there in 20 minutes. And they would say, oh, you can't be, well, I'll be there, okay? And he told me how he would go through old Highway 11 around those curves. And he would get there in a very record period. And he said, and I got them there alive, you know, and that was the key to get to survival. You had to get to the hospital within that hour, and hopefully maybe before, and you got a lot better chance of living. I think they studied that in Vietnam, figured that out in Vietnam.
That there's about an hour
A
of
golden hour, they called it. Yeah.
Well, medicine's come a long way from Ralph Sr. driving you in the ambulance to Neuralink.
Right. No kidding.
In the span of what, 50 years?
50 years.
What'll be next?
I don't know. I hope people walking that can't walk. I read something this week about a guy who's got Lou Gehrig's disease, and he's able to, with this Neuralink thing, talk with his recorded own voice. His own voice has been recorded. And so his thoughts are transmitted into a voice that sounds exactly like he used to sound, like you and I are talking, not like Stephen Hawking with a mechanical voice that skips and jumps. But it's just like you and me talking. It's amazing. The guy can carry on the conversation. It's pretty incredible. But anyway, that's a real tough place to be in. Have a disease like that.
Now, radiology, do you think there'll be advances in that?
Oh my gosh.
Or I mean, you take the slides and go, I see an aneurysm, right? I see a...
You know, that's the way it used to be. When I've seen so much change. I finished my residency in 1991, and I have seen so much change. It's just unbelievable. I can't imagine how it can't keep changing. It's almost not nauseating. That's not a good word, but it's just disorienting how fast things are changing, and they're all for good, but a single human being can only do so much. You know, a radiologist can only do so much. Back when I was training, that's the way it was. You took an x-ray, it was on a film, you hold it up to the light or a view box and look at the light coming through it. It was like a negative of a photograph that we used to see before digital cameras. And it was real big. And that's the way we did it. And then CT came out, and I can remember my dad going to Paul Kimball's dad, Cecil, and saying, hey, Kimball, they're coming out with this new thing called a computed tomography. And Cecil said, oh, they'll probably never get one here. That's for Atlanta, you know, and things like that. So eventually there was one, and it got faster and faster and faster. And when I was training, they would put somebody in the CT scanner, and the thing had wires on it, so it could only go around one time. Then it had to go backwards and cock itself again, and then the patient would move, and then it would go around again. So it would like turn, move, back, turn, move. And you'd have maybe 12, 15 pictures, and it would come up on a piece of film. Now, that thing spins around 3 times, 4 times a second, and it takes 2, 4, 8, 10, 16, 32 images every time it spins around. So the thing that takes time is getting the patient on the table, getting their IV in for contrast, get them all ready, and then you hit the go button, and it's like, they're done.
Then you got a good scan of everything.
Oh my, it's so much, so detailed. You can have what used to be 16 images is now 1,600 images or more, sometimes 3,000 images. It's ridiculous. And so you can get a really, really good picture of the patient. The problem is it takes time to interpret all those images. And so what's happening is the radiologist is in charge of now, instead of reading 30 or 40 exams during a day, maybe reading 100 or 150 or 200 or 250. It's ridiculous exams during a day. And some of those procedures have 1,000 images in them. And so that's too much stuff for one person's brain to do in a day. So there's good and bad. And
maybe that's where AI is going to come into
oh, it's
play.
huge. It is huge. Yeah, it is. I've had AI tell me, hey, did you see that fracture in that cervical spine 30 minutes ago? You know,
I was
"Oh,
at a
really?"
doctor's office here a while back, and he went around the corner, and I could hear him asking AI, asking what's next. Isn't that bizarre?
I'm not sure
Well,
what.
but after he did my blood work. He
Okay.
goes in the other room, and I could hear him consulting with AI. Is what I interpreted it.
Some of the best doctors I know use ChatGPT or your AI of choice multiple times a day. I do. I was at a conference, a radiology conference, mainly for breast imaging, for breast cancer, but there was some abdominal imaging in there. One of the guys was a big guru from big teaching hospital, and he was talking about the specific characteristics of cystic pancreatic tumors that made them more likely to be cancerous or not. And it was really detailed. So I thought, here's all his notes. Here's all the stuff he just told me, A, B, C, D, E, F. And so I opened ChatGPT and I said, okay, tell me what are the MRI characteristics of cystic pancreatic neoplasm that predispose them to be a higher likelihood of malignancy. And it gave me the same exact answers.
That's bizarre,
Right then.
isn't it?
I thought, why do I have to go to this conference? I can just chat GPT. And there was very specific, very detailed information about a very specific tumor and cystic tumors on top of that. So it was wild. It's good though.
I don't know what'll be next. You know, they're using robotics for. Did your dad do prostate stuff with the robot arms, or was
that was after his time?
Yeah.
After he did those open surgeries.
he did the finger things? I guess a lot.
Everybody does the finger thing. What? You mean to examine the prostate
Yeah,
gland?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's never going away, I don't think.
Well, the PSA is trying to get rid of that.
Well, yeah, it's like, I see it as synergistic things. You know, PSA helps, digital examination helps, prostate MRI helps, and they all help in different ways. They all have certain strengths and certain weaknesses, and if you use them all and maximize the strength of each one, then you'll get the best exam. Like when you're doing a breast exam, you got a mammogram, you can do an ultrasound, you better do a physical exam while you're doing that ultrasound. Then you've got 3 things right there. Then you've got breast MRI if you need it, and you've got an ultrasound or an imaging guided biopsy if you need that. So you've got 5 different ways to determine if something inside the breast is malignant or not. So you try to maximize each one. Each one is better at certain things, and each one has weaknesses in certain areas that, like ultrasound can't see calcifications. Mammograms see calcifications. MRI cannot see calcifications. An MRI can see vascularity. A mammogram and an ultrasound cannot see vascularity. None of those things can feel the breast to tell you if what's in there is palpable or feelable or not. And if it is palpable, how it feels. Is it a hard, suspicious mass? Is it a big, hard, suspicious mass? I mean, I've had technologists come to me and say, Dr. Kyle, I just cannot penetrate this breast. I just cannot see. And I look at the image, and it's about this big, and it's all tumor. Since it's all tumor, it's all the same. It looks the same. It looks like a big snowstorm. I think, well, let's go in there and see. So I got the transducer in one hand and put my hand on the breast, and I know why she can't see, because there's a mass there the size of a baseball, and that's all she's imaging. That whole picture is all mass, and so it's homogeneously, that means the same echogenic, bright all the way through. So I know this lady immediately, she needs a breast MRI, like today, and she had cancer on both sides, and anyway, I don't know how I got off into that. But
I had a guy this morning tell me they attributed you to saving their wife's life.
oh,
I won't tell you who it is.
Oh,
but that's a true story.
well, I'll take everybody makes good and bad calls, and I'll take those. I'm happy to hear that.
Well, that's what they think. Whether it's true or not, they believe it.
Well, I'm glad. Believe me, I'm glad. I won't try to talk him out of it.
Was your dad
That's nice.
real religious? I know he had those 2 religious songs. Would you say he was a...
Yes.
I mean, did you have any idea he liked those 2 songs?
No, I didn't. I think he had a lot of stuff held to his vest. I hope that wasn't too loud. I didn't even mean to hit that microphone. He had a lot of stuff close to his vest, and so I didn't know. I didn't know that he'd listen to his grandmother sing those hymns. I had no idea. I learned so many things like that, stories like that, when he was a kid, that we talked about in his last 2-3 weeks of life. So. I'd visit him as often as I could. It was tough. It was tough. He was really sick. Randy did an incredible job keeping him comfortable and cared for. He got to be at home. But
he told me he couldn't have made it if it wasn't for Randy those last few weeks.
Yeah, it was critical. Every day. Every day. Every day and all night, some nights. It was rough. It was tough to see someone suffering like that, but
he wasn't a big golfer at all, was he?
No.
He wouldn't have had the patience for that.
He was athletic, but he was athletic in different ways.
He played basketball with Eddie Cartwright.
He
on
did.
The same...
They did play ball together. They went to the state championship, and I can't remember what year, sometime in the late 50s. Yeah, in Memphis. He said it was the first year they played on glass backboards, and it really messed him up because he'd been playing on white backboards his whole life, and in this big game you can see through. So it really messed him up. He said, if it weren't for those backboards, I think we'd have won.
Did he talk to Eddie a lot?
A lot. I'd hear him on the phone with him, especially on Saturdays before Tennessee ball games. They think they're going to pull it through, Cartwright? How do you think I do? And Miltine, his wife, was one of my Sunday school teachers. I love the Cartwrights. And I keep up with her, and we talk. And she tells me how close they were. And my dad told me, but when you're a kid, you can hear a lot of stuff, and you just don't remember it or it doesn't stick. But I didn't realize how close they were. And they play. Mr. Cartwright thinks a lot of my dad. He regards him very highly. It's very flattering to hear him say that. My dad, he loved his friends. He loved his friends more than he would let on. He just wasn't that kind of person. He wasn't a warm, fuzzy kind of person. But he really was. He just didn't let anybody know it.
That might have been the I don't know, maybe a doctor's got to be a little bit standoffish, a little bit maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't.
I do. I think you have to.
Everybody's going to know if they're going to be okay, and you don't have the answer for any of
Listen,
them.
my daughter called me a few weeks ago. She had a very difficult ER case. Very difficult. Patient didn't survive. There's no way the patient was going to survive. They were just going to die. It was just one of those things. You couldn't stop it. You couldn't stop it if you did all the right things, which she did, and she would get counsel from other members in her group. You did a good job. You did this right. It messes with people. And if you don't, it will destroy you. Like being in a MASH unit.
Or Vietnam.
If you can't, anywhere, if you can't put some distance between you and that really sick patient, it'll kill you. And I'm in radiology. I'm about as far away as you can get. I see people, but I don't see them in urgent, critical, life-threatening situations like that, personally. My daughter does. It's hard. It's really hard. So, yeah, my dad, I think he did.
I think you almost have to have
You have to, but But he had a hard time doing that. He really liked people. He really liked being a doctor in a small town, in his small town where he grew up. He loved it. I loved it. I thought it was great. It's very special, very unique, and you don't realize how unique and how special it is until you go somewhere else, like Chattanooga or Memphis or another city and train, and you're just lost in the shuffle. Or you go to UT in Knoxville and you're one of 30,000 students walking around in a big, huge beehive, you know. Some people like that. I kind of did, but I liked being from a small town better. It's just special.
Is it pretty easy? I wonder if little D can, or I call him little D, but I wonder if he can get in. I guess if his MCAT score is good enough and applies to the right place.
Yeah, and you know, if he doesn't do as well as he wants, tell him to take the thing again. I was so terrible at taking those standardized tests, I didn't want to take it again. I didn't do that great on the MCAT. I mean, there's different parts.
Did you fail or just?
No, I did. There's analytical. I'm no good at math, and I can't read graphs. It's hard for me to do that. And that was the last part of the test, and I made like a 5 out of 15 on it. It was terrible, but I still got in. So you can tell him that. You don't have to be great at everything.
So what's the trick in getting in?
I think the trick is having an overall good grade point average first, doing well in the basic things like organic chemistry, general chemistry, physics, biology, those things, those core things. It's good if you get straight A's and all that. Interview well. When you get interviewed, just go be yourself and be a normal human being. Some people study all the time and they're just a little bit warped, you know, and they don't interview well. They may come across as kind of strange or not, or like on, you know, do you want this person being a doctor in your medical school? So to interview well, be able to carry on a conversation.
So you might have a lower score, but
Yes.
you'd be more familiar with Dale Carnegie type of stuff, you know, how to win friends and influence people. You may.
I think so. I do think so. I know it makes a difference. I think it helped me. I happened to have a good interview. I don't know, I felt good that day. The interviewers and I seemed to have a good conversation, a good rapport, whatever you want to say. And I thought it went well. I mean, I had a great grade point average, but I didn't do great on the MCAT. And I hated standardized tests so badly, I really didn't want to take it again. I should have. I should have taken the thing again and tried to do better. Yeah, the MCAT. I would recommend he prepare for the MCAT, study for it. I wish I had studied more for the MCAT to prepare specifically for that.
But don't hinge everything on that score.
No, absolutely not. No.
That's almost I'm going to say that may be sort of you can get in with I'm going to say you can get in with a bad score as well as a good score if you're lucky that day.
If you're lucky that day and you have a good interview and you have good grades, yes, absolutely. I think so.
And you got the money.
Yeah, that helps. That helps. And things were tight when my dad went through. They were tight. And I'm grateful for him getting me through medical school. Yeah. It's nice when you don't have to worry about the finances and you can concentrate on studying.
Well, they got student loans now, too.
That's true. You can do that. And yeah, exactly.
Do you have any other hobbies?
Used to golf a lot, but I don't much anymore.
What do you do?
I ride a bike sometimes.
What kind?
I have a road bike.
I got a road bike.
I like just going out on the back roads and just cruising.
Where do you ride?
Well, I live in southern Bradley County. Actually, I live in McDonald. So there's a lot of country roads that I can get to real fast.
You go down Lead Mine,
I've been down
Tunnel Hill?
All those roads.
You done Brock Road Hill?
I know Brock Road, yeah.
Have you done the hill?
Yeah, that's super steep.
Up to the graveyard?
Up to the
There's
graveyard.
a church with a graveyard on the right. Man, that's a tough one.
I don't remember the graveyard, but
Then
I remember being on
you
Brock
probably didn't
Road.
take it.
I've been on Brock Road. It's a very steep hill.
Very steep.
I don't know where the graveyard is.
Can you get up Brock Road?
Yeah, I can get up it. Have you ever done, I'll tell you what a road you ought to try if you really want to be challenged. It's oh golly, what is the thing?
Not Beeler Ridge.
No, it's not Beeler Ridge.
Beeler Ridge is the toughest one I've been on.
Okay, I'll have to try that. This one is on Signal Mountain.
Oh, Burkhalter.
No.
Burkhalter.
No.
They call it two different names. I call
Okay.
it Burkhalter.
Maybe that's
it's
it.
tough.
It's ridiculously
It's ridiculous.
steep. It's not the W road. It's
It's stupid.
It's
It's stupid.
It's stupid.
It's stupid.
I went up that thing one day, and I thought I was gonna die. I thought my heart cannot go any faster. I'm gonna pass it. But I said, no, you're not gonna stop. You're gonna get up.
Let me tell you what I did.
What did you do?
I did that 3-state, 3-mountain ride.
Okay.
And we got up to the top, and they had a sag there. One of those places where they give you something to drink.
Okay.
And so I stopped, and I had been riding with these. We'd sort of grouped up with these.
Roberts Mill Road.
Roberts Mill Road.
That's the ridiculous
Yeah,
road.
ridiculous.
Sorry
It's
to interrupt.
stupid.
It's stupid. Anyway, tell me the story.
So I got up there, and I thought I'd sort of been riding with this group of people. You know how I didn't know them, but we just sort of started riding the same pace. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, I'll just get on the bike and head on, and I'll get a little bit ahead of them because they'll catch me. Mm-hmm. But I'll at least be, I can ride a little bit easy for a few minutes.
Okay.
And so one of them got behind me and then got ahead of me, and I could hear the other people say, "Hey, TJ," that evidently was it says.
Okay.
And that's all they said. But well, they turned around, and I thought, well, they're just going to ride with them. Well, I had followed the arrows from the week before.
Okay.
In other words, I went the wrong way. 9 miles out of the way on a 104-mile ride, which ended up being a 113-mile
But see,
ride.
look at all the extra exercise you got. I mean, your butt must have been really
Oh,
sore.
I was so sick. Because 9 miles at that point is a big deal.
No kidding.
You don't ride with anybody?
No, I mainly just go by myself because it's hard to find time, when you have a real weird schedule. Mm-hmm. I get home when I can go, I'll just jump on and go for an hour, 2 maybe. I don't go on those super long rides anymore. I don't have time. I don't know if I have the energy. The longest I've ever been on my bike is like 66, 67 miles in one day. A friend of mine took off and went across the Tennessee Valley to the Highway 2, Georgia Highway 2, because I heard it used to go over Cowpen Mountain, and I wanted to see how far we could get. But it got narrower and narrower and rockier, and I was tireder and tireder. And at that point, we were like 35 miles out and had to go 35 miles back. So we stopped and turned around.
Have you ever done the Silver Comet in Atlanta? Mm-mm. That Silver Comet route is like 240 miles.
No.
And people do. I did 72 of it. But it's an old railroad bed.
And I've heard about it.
And they've made it like 10-foot wide concrete, and there's only 2% grade everywhere. It's really nice.
Wow.
And you can get on. We got on at Somerset, Georgia, or somewhere like that, and rode all the way to Anniston, Alabama.
Wow,
and and ride. It's no hard climbing or nothing.
Silver Comet.
Yeah, and you go through some towns and they have it yellowed off.
It's
really
amazing.
It's really something. What kind of bike do you ride?
I don't know. I got a Trek. I went to Scott's and got a Trek.
You got hydraulic brakes or?
No, 5200 was the first one, and I got a newer one a few years ago. Don't even know what number it is. It just goes.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing like cycling, is there?
And there's nothing.
I mean, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, I need to make more time to do it. I haven't had a whole lot of time to take advantage of it like I used to. I used to do it 2-3 times a week. Mm-hmm. When the weather allowed. I'd even go in the wintertime. I had these big, huge mitts I could stick my hands in and
well, they're
cover
warm
it all
too,
up.
aren't they?
It was essential to have my. Tried someone I used to ride a motorcycle in college, and that would really make it doable. Mm-hmm. You could really ride in the wintertime if you keep your hands warm.
I've got gloves that you can't even feel any cold weather at all, but my face gets cold.
Oh, yes.
I started wearing the mask, but then you can't breathe.
That's right. That's when I gave up on winter riding. I said no. I mean, imagine trying to change a tire when it's that cold. It just be impossible.
ASOS has a mask that has a little ASOS medallion in the center, and you bite on that medallion, and you can breathe through the mask.
Okay.
And it works pretty good. I mean, it keeps you a little.
That's really cold weather.
That's cold weather, but it'll keep you
Okay.
Because they say if you're breathing in warm air, it's more you can your endurance is better
Yeah.
than cold weather
Probably
because
so.
cold shocks your lungs.
Yeah, that sounds like let's ride in the warm weather. Warmer.
But boy, there's no other feeling like
There's
getting
not.
out and riding. Did you listen
I
to
wish-
music while you was riding?
I used to, but I get my granny and my dad and me were all really hard of hearing. So, in order to hear music over the wind noise, I got to crank the volume up, and I'm just who knows. My phone will tell me, "Hey, man, you're over 90 decibels. You need to quit that stuff. Take a break." And so those speakers in my ears are like the same warning I get when I'm running a chainsaw or something like that without ear protection. So I'm conflicted about.
I
listening
wondered
to
about
music.
that. I'll put it in one ear, and I wonder if that hurts my ear. But
I'm worried that it does, and the reason is, the wind noise is pretty loud.
yeah,
And so you've got to crank the volume up to get over the wind noise. And then what happens if someone's honking at you or you need to hear something?
That's why I only put it in this ear
Right.
instead of that one.
Right.
But I keep mine on a 15, and that's like you got to be thinking about it to hear it.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're
That might be good if
You
you
know,
got
just-
if you got good hearing.
Yeah.
But see, my hearing is shot, so I have to turn it way up to hear. So
Which ear do you hear worse out of?
the right one, by far. Yeah, by far.
Is that just inherited?
I think it is.
My mother had that.
My granny couldn't hear thunder. When I was a kid, I played it. We would shoot. We were target shooting. We didn't wear ear protection. We didn't wear eye protection. We played around with fireworks. Bob Tucker and I would blow stuff up, and no ear protection ever.
Who'd you go to school with?
Let's see: Charlie Smith, Bob Tucker, Jeff Renfro, Paul Kimball,
Paul, yeah, I know Paul and Jeff.
Mike Sharp.
Yeah, Mike.
Oh,
That would have been Tim Henderson,
Barrett
maybe?
Painter, Tim
Barrett.
Henderson. Yeah.
Robert Thompson.
Robert was a year behind me. Yeah. Yeah. Robert and I had the same teacher, Gail Martin, passed away a few years ago. She was just amazing, great teacher. She's the one that got me excited or interested in biology and stuff. She was great. He visited her about a week before she died. Good guy. Took a special plane trip down to see her specifically. And
Well,
visited
she
her.
must have had an impact on him.
She
huh?
was amazing. She was a great teacher.
What was it about her that?
I don't know. She connected with the students. She knew how to teach, 5th and 6th graders. She knew how to talk to them and communicate with them. She did me, and I'm sure it was the same for Robert. I really appreciate good teachers like that. Oh, we had some really good teachers here in Cleveland.
Well, I had a bad one in 5th grade.
You did?
Oh, it was horrible. She was horrible. I don't know how they
That
kept.
hurts you.
Oh yeah, because that's a bad age to have a
It's a
bad
bad
teacher.
age to have a bad teacher. Yeah. Any age is a bad age, but
But 5th and
those are
6th,
particularly
at
important.
5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th is
Yeah.
a big, and 9th
Huge.
probably. After the 9th, you can see through the bull.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. 5th and 6th probably the worst.
Do you have a heavy work schedule now?
It's awful. Awful.
60 hours a week or 30?
It more like 65. Let's see, 10, 20, 30. No, 50 to 60. It depends on if I work the weekend. But it's not the hours that's worked. It's not the hours. It's the amount of things you have to see and do. Like I was telling you about, so many images per study and how many studies per day. And they're calculating now workload in RVUs, which is a terrible thing. It's relative value units. What is your value relative to somebody else's value relative to it? And then they give you a list of how many RVUs you've generated that day, the next day, compared to all the other people that you're working with.
And you may want to look at something a little different than that. It may take you another.
It's exactly. So if you go slower and you don't crank out as many RVUs per hour, it's going to take you more hours of the day to do that. It's ridiculous. It's fatiguing, and it's not good medicine. And that's one of the major reservations I have about medicine, is that's where it's headed in all specialties. If your son does ER, the good thing about ER is you can only do what you can do. You know, you can take care of this patient, that patient, another patient, and that's it.
Send them on.
You're taking care of 4 people at the same time, and you're running back and forth, suturing, doing a broken bone, putting on a cast, fixing this, stabilizing this MI, taking care of that stroke patient. And you can only do so many of those. And it's real time. That's one good thing about ER. And I think that's what it's very attractive to people now. And one of the residents would tell me, the good thing about the ER is, because everybody would rotate through the ER in that first internship year. And he loved it. He said, when you're going home, your shift is over at whatever time it's over. And it may bleed over another hour, but usually not.
You don't want your doctor or your
no,
or your lawyer
I know where you're headed then.
Based on working at everybody's pace. You want them looking at your thing,
exactly.
Whatever it is.
Exactly. I don't want my radiologist being as tired as I am sometimes. I want him to be able
We're
to
trying
take
to
his
keep
time.
up with the status quo.
Yes, exactly.
You may like to look at stuff a little bit different.
Yes.
There's always...
I had a guy, an internal medicine guy that I was talking to last week. He's 77, still working full time. And he said, don't let them push you. Do not let them push you past what you can do. He said 2 years ago, when he was 75, he said, I had to decide, am I going to have a heart attack or am I not? And he said, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do it. Don't let them push you. So, I finish with as many RVUs in a day as I can do, and I'm not going to work until 9 or 10 o'clock that night to get up to 80. I just can't. You can't do that and survive. So, that's what has to be guarded against. Because you can't be a doctor and have 5 minutes to see a patient. You can't do it. I don't want my doctor seeing me in 5 minutes. I want him to spend
I can't
50.
even get out what's wrong with me in 5 minutes.
You can't. Exactly, you can't.
You can a radiologist go into private practice? I don't guess they can they?
That's a good question.
I mean, I don't
Some
know how
people
that works.
probably do. They probably have a group of 1 or 2. But it's hard to, because you got to have
Who
a
wants
little
to
time.
wait for somebody to read your chart, right?
It's just so common to work in a group. I guess you could if you're very business-minded. I'm not business-minded. I just like focusing on the problem and the images, the exams, the studies. I don't like the business end. Unlike my dad, he loved that stuff. He would mail me that stuff and send me things to read.
Well, that's where Mark got his business sense.
Yeah,
he
I guess.
got that part of your
He
dad.
got that part. Yeah, he's good with numbers. They just make me nervous.
I like to read. I like to watch YouTube stuff on medical. That's sort of my hobby.
Yeah,
Not
okay.
that I'm trying to be anything
it's
that.
interesting.
It's interesting.
It is
how-
interesting. If you can do it without it making you crazy, like it makes me crazy at work because of the workload, it's fun. It's really interesting. Anatomy is cool, and medicine is cool, and the human body is amazing. People have been made incredible. We're so complicated, it's ridiculous.
And they come up with so many different diets now, and so many different things, and
Yeah.
and I used to watch Dr. Gilbert Welch. Did you ever hear him? He's an internal medicine guy.
I don't think so.
He was with Dartmouth, but I think he somehow or another he doesn't do as much. But he was as talked with as much layman terms to me.
Oh,
he was an internal medicine.
That's always very
Yeah,
helpful
yeah.
if you want to communicate with
Yeah.
people.
And the internal medicine, what do they call it? A doctor's doctor? Isn't that what some of them call them?
Yeah, that's appropriate. Yeah. There was a.
He said that, and he was obviously an internal medicine doctor. Is not anybody that's dumb, but he would. He indicated that doing what your grandmother said, get plenty of sleep.
Yes. Huge.
Let's see. Get plenty of sleep. Eat right and
Yes.
go outside and play.
Yes.
He said that solves a lot of the problems.
Yeah. A lot. Drinking a lot of water helps too.
Yeah.
And eating right is, I think that's extra huge. You know.
Hey, if an aspirin will make your head stop hurting, what will a green bean do? You ever thought about that? I mean,
No.
I mean, one little aspirin will get rid of a headache. What
Yeah.
will a green bean do?
I probably help you be healthy. I know that good diets, lots of beans, legumes, green leafies, different colored natural stuff that's different colors, like, you know, carrots and you name the cabbage, purple cabbage, peppers that are orange and red and
Yeah.
blue, and all the colors.
The
are
colors
helpful.
are good.
They're good for
That's
you.
what Gilbert Welch said too.
Yeah, I agree.
He
Yeah, this
said,
guy's on it.
keep it color, keep your plate
Yeah,
colorful.
exactly. Yeah.
I think he said, put some carrots on there, and I'm probably saying wrong, but I think he said carrots for color,
Carrots for
something
color.
like
Yeah,
that.
Yes, I agree. My dad. It's amazing. My dad lived to be 90 because he ate terribly. All these things we're talking about.
He loved
he
cheese.
didn't like
He
it.
loved cheese, didn't he?
He loved. Oh my gosh. Yes. We would take him. This is vegetarian cheese, Daddy. Oh no, I don't like it. No, I do. This is a Beyond Burger. It's
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
I don't like that. You know.
And you know
this
now
is-
they're getting now they're saying that you know, carnivore diets. That's the big rage right
I
now.
know. I know.
I was
can't
I was a vegetarian for 15 years.
Really? How about that?
About killed me. It literally did. It just about killed me.
Why?
You just don't have any energy.
Well, maybe you weren't eating the right
I
stuff.
studied it. I was
You
a vegetarian. I
did
was
you
a
eat-
vegan for a while.
Did you eat enough protein?
You can't get enough protein.
Yes, you can. Where do you think the cows get their protein in the bull? Where do you think a bull
It doesn't. It's not.
gets his protein? Does he eat any meat to get his protein? A bull?
It's not the same. I'm telling you, it's not the same. You got to have red meat.
I haven't had. I bet I've had a half a steak in the last 30 years, maybe. One day, I remember I was at the medical society meeting at the Cleveland Country Club, and I was eating a steak. It wasn't that great. And I thought, is this worth getting colon cancer over? No, it's not that good. I'm not going to do it. And so I quit basically eating red meat. Very rarely will I have something, but that's just me. That's a personal choice. I don't miss it that much.
Well, you missed the Worcestershire, the salts, the ketchups, the mustards.
Maybe, but I can have Worcestershire.
I used to eat the Beyond Burgers.
Yeah, I'll eat those every now and then. They're not bad. They're pretty close.
Have you ever studied? I know you, being a doctor, you got to be careful what you say. But I read one interesting book that was probably one of the most interesting medical books I've read. Was Eat Right for Your Blood Type.
Okay.
And this guy's theory is that one size doesn't fit all. He goes into type O, A, AB,
Okay.
and AB positive,
Never
AB.
heard of this.
And he says based on the way your blood metabolizes some of the foods, or if I'm saying it right, that. So he went out. He goes over everything that type O is supposed to eat, type A, type B,
Okay.
and AB positive.
Okay.
And I put them on a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet. The ones that were I'm AB positive.
Okay. You're serious about this.
Oh,
aren't you?
I did the whole 9 yards.
All right.
And,
What'd you find out?
That if I stay on what that guy says,
Yes.
I feel absolutely like Superman.
What does he say?
Well, it's what your blood type is.
What did
Like
that
what's your
mean
blood
to you?
type?
I think it's O positive. I
Well,
really
see,
don't know.
O positive. O is the oldest blood type according to this guy. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's all meat eaters.
Meat eaters?
Meat eaters. Yeah. B is I believe.
So
B,
I should be eating a lot of meat if I'm
according
O
to this
positive.
book,
I forget what the universal donor is. O positive, O
O.
negative. Yeah.
O positive, I think.
O
I
positive.
think O positive. Yeah.
Yeah, because if
And
you're
O negative is real rare, right?
yeah, and then you'll have antibodies against
But
yeah.
this guy says that I'm supposed to eat kale is one of my superfoods.
Well,
And-
that's a superfood for everybody. Kale is.
Not if you're A.
Not if you're A.
I'm not supposed to eat oranges.
I'm having trouble with this because oranges are good for you.
Well, if you're, according to him,
Okay.
if I'm not messing it up, A's have less acid in the stomach. And certain foods that you eat are more alkaline when they get into your system.
Okay.
And it helps to balance your pH.
Maybe that's
so
true.
so the oranges are very acidic.
Right.
Acidic. And so when they put them into like my system that's more acidic, I'm acidic plus acidic. So I'm supposed to prefer over oranges. He doesn't say you can't eat.
So you tried it and you felt good.
Oh
You felt
yeah,
really
like
good.
I'm supposed to eat berries, blueberries, and
Well,
raspberries.
the proof is in the pudding, so if it works, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, berries are good for everybody. How can berries be bad for anybody?
I'm not supposed to eat. I'm supposed to eat. I'm supposed to drink whole milk
Oh my gosh.
and
whole milk.
and not. Let's see what else. I'm supposed to stay away from peanuts and go more towards the nut butters.
Yeah. Well, you know, if it makes you feel good, if you feel great.
Is there such a thing as placebo effect?
Of
Is that
course.
real?
Yes, it's
How
real.
far can that take a person?
No, I'm not my worst grade in medical school, next to psychiatry, was biostatistics. And that's how they figure out whether a placebo works or not.
Biostatistics.
Yes. A lean, mean biostatistical machine is one of my buddies, what we would say about each other, because we hated biostatistics so badly. I was so terrible at math, and it was just so boring. And just they study, you know, you give person A a sugar pill, you give person B a sugar pill and an antibiotic, you give person C a sugar pill and antibiotic and something else, you give person D something else, and then you compare them all and see how they did on against a certain disease, and that's how you determine if the placebo works or makes the people feel different. So yeah, I think it's true. But why did you ask?
How far can that take you? The placebo effect. That's a good question.
How far? I don't
That's
know.
the big question.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a big question. Maybe far enough. I guess it depends on the problem that you've got, or you think you have.
Yeah.
Maybe you just think you have that problem and you don't really have that problem. And the sugar pill made you better, or made you think you're better. That might be helping explain why you feel better eating certain diets.
Absolutely.
So
Everybody feels better on a diet. Everybody says, "Oh, I've never felt better."
if you're eating a diet you think is right down your alley and genetically designed for you, yeah.
Maybe perception is reality,
Maybe.
even as far as actually physical.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason why they studied the placebos.
And I guess in part to remove that from the equation so that they can determine what is actually statistically relevant. And that's why I did so bad in biostatistics.
Because it's sort of a theory anyway,
It's
right?
a theory, yeah.
I mean, how would you say we're gonna take out the ones that got better with the placebo?
Well, that's really interesting. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. And the reason I know they do it is because they'll do studies and they'll call them randomized, prospective, double-blinded, placebo-controlled studies. And wait a minute, placebo-controlled? How do they control for placebo? Somehow or other they can figure out what the placebo effect does and remove it and subtract it from your study results.
And then they'll have the meta-analysis, right?
I guess. It's all over my head.
Yeah.
It's above my pay grade. I just don't.
I always look down at the bottom and see how many they tested.
That's true.
If I see that they're giving percentages without the numbers, I know it's bull. If they're giving the numbers without the percentages, I know it's bull.
Yeah.
If they'll give the numbers and the percentages,
And the numbers are big.
and the numbers are big enough,
Big.
you can pretty well start to say you got something.
Right. That's about as far as my knowledge
Yeah.
of biostatistics goes. I wish I was better, but I'm not. I'm
You
just
know,
not.
what else interested you besides medical?
What interested
I mean,
me?
theology or not really psychology, ancient history?
Oh, I love history. I love archaeology. A couple years ago, 2017, I got to go with a buddy of mine who is the curator of the Archaeology Museum in Collegedale, Tennessee, at Southern Adventist University. And that museum has some of the greatest artifacts. They just closed down an exhibit that had something called the comb. If you Google the comb, C-O-M-B, like a comb for your hair, the ivory comb, it's made of ivory. They discovered this thing in a dig site called Lachish. And Lachish, back in ancient Israel, was the second biggest city next to Jerusalem. So it'd be like D.C. is Jerusalem, and maybe Atlanta or New York is Lachish. And Lachish was built up, and then there would be and as those societies did, there would be a destruction, or someone would take over and destroy the city, and then they would build it up for several hundred years, and then someone else would come in and destroy it. And as you go back in time, as you dig down, you go back in time, you go through the different destruction layers. Like level 3 or level 4 is Nebuchadnezzar's destruction layer in 586 BC. They know when that happened. And you keep digging down, you go further back in time to 700 BC, which is when Sennacherib came from Assyria and destroyed Lachish. And there's a famous Bible story about that, how Hezekiah, who was the king of Israel then, was in Jerusalem. And Jerusalem was the only city never to fall during that invasion. Sennacherib he was the king, and he came down destroying city after city after city, because that's how they were. They were like city-states almost, but there was one state. And he came all the way down, destroyed Lachish. His destruction layer is visible there. It's like level 4, level 5. I can't remember which it is. It's the one deeper than Nebuchadnezzar's. And you can find stuff there and date it based on, accurately, based on the type of pottery you find, the artifacts you find, the seal impressions, which are, like if I wrote you a letter and I would have a signet in my ring and I would push it into the wax on there and send it to you, and you'd get the seal impression. You might pop that thing off, made out of clay, and throw it in a little jar, and they find these things left over, and so they've got seal impressions from all these different people who they've been able to identify, and it's fascinating. They found Hezekiah's seal impression in Israel, in Jerusalem, and they found Isaiah's seal impression. I'm pretty sure that was his prophet a few feet away, like, those length of this table away from each other at the same level. Anyway, I love stuff like that. It's really cool.
That is, what was about the comb?
The comb, well, they were digging down. This was in 2016. I got to go help dig in Lachish with my friend, with some other college students who were archaeology students. They were doing it for credit. I was doing it, and my wife and I were doing it for fun. We just went and helped them dig, and they showed us how to dig and how to not to tear things up and how to do it. And the year before, they have a 5 by 5 meters. That's about 25 feet by 25 feet square going straight down into the ground. And at each layer, you document how deep you are and how far back in time you've gone. So they get down to this level. It's about 700 BC, around Sennacherib's destruction layer time. And they find this little square thing, and they think it's a bone maybe, and they throw it in the bone bag because you're supposed to keep bones separate. Well, the first day of the dig, the bone guy says, well, let me see what you got in the bone bag. Oh, well, this is not a bone. This is ivory. I think this is ivory. Yeah, this is ivory. We'll throw it in another bag. So they document where it was, exactly what level. It was 4 inches from the wall, so that the wall came down, and if it had been, a foot over this way, they'd have never found it. And so they know exactly what level it was. And how did this story go? They took this artifact and they gave it to somebody because they figured out it was a comb, because it had broken teeth on one side of it and little broken teeth on the other side of it. So even though it was very small, it was an artifact, and it was a rare artifact, and it was an educated or rich person's artifact, because it was a rare thing to have a comb like that. And that got set off in another place to get studied, and someone was taking a picture of it with their iPhone, and they realized, wait a minute, there's something written on that cone. It looks like there's a letter, maybe. So she takes it and sends it off to an epigrapher friend of hers, and they find out, and they start studying this, that there's actually letters written in this thing. So they clean the thing off, and they get it all perfectly restored as much as possible, and they decipher the letters in this thing, and it turns out to be the oldest. Back when human communication was going on, it was very, very cumbersome things like hieroglyphics that the Egyptians used. And they'd have a symbol for this and a symbol for that and a symbol for something else. And so to communicate, you had to know hundreds and thousands of symbols. So the only people who communicated like that were the very, very, very top educated people, very small fraction. Mm-hmm. And what happened over time is those symbols were translated into symbols that represented sounds like A and B and E and Ah. So that's when the alphabet developed, which is many, many thousands of years ago. Mm-hmm. And what happens to this comb actually has an inscription written on it. And they deciphered it. And it's in a very, very old Canaanite language, letters. Some of the letters actually still resemble figures, like the Q is a monkey. There was a monkey sign with a little tail hanging off, and the Q in our alphabet today mm-hmm. is what's left of that monkey sign. Yeah. Well, this thing had a lot of letters in it, and they deciphered it, and they figured out what it said, and it said it was the first. So it was fascinating about this comb. It was the first full sentence ever found in the world mm-hmm. of an alphabetic phrase. The first full sentence. They find fractions, they find pieces like a word, but this one says, may this tusk, ivory in quotes, equated, may this ivory tusk root out the lice from the hair and beard, is what it said. And they went back and looked at it, and there's a tiny, in between the teeth, there's a tiny little piece of a exoskeleton of a louse, and it's really pretty neat. You can Google it. The exhibit closed yesterday, and I just went through and looked at it with our buddy. His name's Michael Hossel. He's an Egyptologist, archaeologist who specializes in Egyptian culture and history.
In Ottawa?
Ottawa. And, Collingsdale. Ottawa and Collingsdale are very, very close.
That must have been something that someone purchased at the time.
And,
it was, because they were saying this is for lice.
Yeah. Someone purchased it and or made it and gave it to somebody else with an inscription like, hey, I hope this works for you. Here's the thing.
With what do they call it, syntax?
Yeah, it's funny that it was written in 2 lines, so evidently you had to read it one direction, then flip the thing over and read it back the other direction.
Golly.
It's kind of weird. I don't understand, but that's how they did it back then. And it's very interesting, but it's fascinating. It made archaeology literature, it's only a few years old. This thing, they found it, and then they didn't realize what it was for several years. Like the movie, The Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. They take the thing and they put it in a warehouse, and it's just like good luck finding it. But that's how archaeology artifacts are. They have them stuffed everywhere, back in storage. This one just happened to be when someone was taking a picture of it with an iPhone. They noticed that there was a letter on it, so they looked closer and found all the letters. There's like 16 or 17 of them.
I wonder around here why, we've done a lot of digging. I've never found anything. I always wished I'd have found something.
Well, I hear there's Civil War artifacts and there's arrowheads and stuff like that, but I've never found one either.
I hadn't found anything.
But I found an arrowhead in Lahish. It was a metal arrowhead.
A metal arrowhead, huh?
You as you dig through the stuff, you have buckets of dust and dirt, and about 1 out of every 10 you take and sift, and you put it in the sifter and you shake it, and all the dust comes out, and what's left is maybe an artifact. I did find a metal arrowhead. It was a Judean arrowhead.
Did you see that on the internet where they're saying that underneath the pyramids they got these tubes that's... You hadn't seen that?
No.
Oh, they've got tubes underneath like they were for batteries and stuff.
Oh no, I haven't.
Do you study any of that? Do you think the pyramids were for?
I don't know how in the world those guys built those pyramids, except that they bankrupted the country to take all those slaves and do all that stuff and pile all that sand up and drag those things over there. I don't think there's.
Or even the one thing that's always fast is Easter Island. You know, where they got all those statues on Easter Island.
I have to claim ignorance. I don't know. Tell me about Easter Island.
Easter Island is an island close to. I think it's just outside of Italy. Or
Have you ever been to the pyramids?
no,
You ought to go
no.
sometime.
But I've watched it. But I stayed at the Holiday Inn. Remember that commercial?
What?
You know that. You know. They said, "Are you so?" He said, "No, but I stayed at the Holiday Inn." In other words, you don't remember that commercial?
Vaguely.
You remember that commercial, don't you, Gwen?
I do.
Yeah. In other words,
Barely.
I've watched this. But anyway,
You ought to
Easter
go
Island, they found these statues all similar. And they're these huge statues made out of stone, and there's no stone on the island that's from there. That's Easter Island. I think
There's
it's
a
Peru. Peru.
There's some wild mysteries. I have to admit, I don't know how that happened.
And how about the crystal skulls? You familiar with them?
No. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Dee.
You're not familiar with the seven crystal skulls?
No, you'd have to tell me about those too.
Well, that's a different one. But so a lot of the history you like is the Roman Empire, that sort of stuff.
Well, I like archaeology in general, not necessarily the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire didn't happen for another 200-300 years, 400 years relative to the things I was talking about then. That was all biblical history. And then a lot of it's recorded in Chronicles and Kings, and I think Jeremiah wrote some about it too. I can't remember. It's one of the prophets wrote about those stories. They're fascinating stories. I find interesting archaeology that brings light to the biblical accuracy of history, because for a long time people didn't believe in Hittites for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Oh no, we don't know about Hittites, and what do you know? They discover stuff in archaeology, and I can't tell you what it is right now. There's the Hittites. They did exist.
And Sodom and Gomorrah, they think they found that, right?
Yeah,
Sodom?
I don't know. I'll have to claim ignorance. My main experience has been that's where I got to dig, is in Lachish. And so that's the main. There's so many Israeli kings. It's confusing. But Hezekiah is a big one because he was one of the only good ones, for one. For two, he reigned for a long time, about 15 years before 700 BC and about 15 years after 700 BC. He is recorded in not only biblical history, but in Assyrian documents. The guy that came down, Sennacherib, when he went and destroyed Lachish and then went on to Jerusalem, he surrounded Jerusalem. He wasn't there. He was still back at Lachish or somewhere else. But his Rabshakeh was, and they surrounded Jerusalem, and they were yelling at the people in Hebrew, talking to them. And the Hebrew guys were saying, "We understand your language. Talk to us in that language." And they said, "We'll just talk to you in Hebrew so everybody can hear us. And if you come out and surrender, it'll be all okay." And those guys were bad. They make ISIS look like the Girl Scouts.
Oh, they were bad people.
They'd skin people alive at Lachish. They did terrible things. And they were going to do that to Jerusalem, but they didn't. They didn't get in. And in the documents in the city of Nineveh, on the walls that the British took to the British Museum, there's documentation of how Sennacherib conquered and destroyed Lachish and took the prisoners back. But it doesn't say anything about that concerning Hezekiah. He says in those same wall documents and recordings that he trapped him like a bird in a cage. So that's pretty true. He surrounded according to the Bible, he surrounded the city, and then an angel of the Lord came down and destroyed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers, and they're all dead the next day. And the king went back and was murdered in one of his temples by two of his sons, maybe 20 years later. So it's very interesting how both Assyrian archaeology and biblical accounts and biblical archaeology about the things found in Lachish all tell the same story. So
Yeah, they can't be. I always go back to that as it can't be a coincidence. More and more of those things prove the Bible.
I think so. That's what that's what I find interesting and fascinating. Yeah, it's very fascinating, and there's so much to it. I can't remember it all, but that's one of my favorite stories and one
I think that was during the time Jonah. Didn't that where Jonah went when he was swallowed by the whale?
He went to Nineveh.
Nineveh's where
Nineveh
he
was
went
a bad
to.
place. Nineveh was the capital of the Assyrians, and I don't remember.
I think that was the. It mentions that being the king at the time he was.
I don't
there.
remember. I should know that, but I don't. I'm gonna have to go find out. I'll text you.
Yeah.
When I find out. I asked my buddy, the Egyptologist.
Well, they were a lot. Those guys were. You know, the Bible said, "Kill every living thing that breathes."
I know it's pretty
So
harsh.
there had to. I mean, every animal, everything that breathes.
I know. It's
every
it's tough.
woman and child.
I know.
And,
It's hard to hear.
It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
But they must have been some really bad people just from.
I know you wouldn't want your city to be overtaken by them.
No.
I wouldn't.
Do you think that we'll ever be taken over like that, like the what was that, the Huguenots or who's that guy that almost took over the world? I forget what it was. It wasn't Alexander the Great, but it was actually before him. Was it Horus?
I don't know. My knowledge of ancient history is spotty at best. So.
And if we read it, we're just going on what a theory, because there's very little archaeology. Jay Liggett went into that. Do you know Jay?
I know the name.
He quit the bank, retired, and went to school of archaeology. And I hadn't talked to him in a while, but that's what he's doing now.
Really? How about that?
Yeah, I mean that took some nerve.
It did take some nerve. Yes, it did.
You admire people that you ever know anybody that just took an about face with their life and just started doing something else?
I admire people that do that.
Me
I'm
too.
trying to think
couldn't
of
do it.
somebody that's done it. I'd say Jay Liggett.
Now that was an about face.
That's
of course, he had made it and succeeded in the banking business, but
Well, that helps.
I'm always
But
fascinated about people that just disappear.
Disappear.
Yeah, like you can go on these sites and say people that just disappeared.
I'm not really familiar much with that.
Yeah, there's sites you can go on that just talk about people that just disappeared, whether unwillingly, just wanted to say I'm not interested in this no more.
Well, I don't know.
They didn't have kids, did
Obviously, probably not. Hopefully not.
What else is going on? Did you go to church this morning?
I went to church yesterday, actually. I go to the Seventh Adventist Church.
Oh, is that right? In Udall?
Oh,
Clay Breaky? Clay Breaky, friend of mine.
No, I don't think
He
so.
goes to the one here in Cleveland, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be like one Baptist in one city not knowing.
So are you Seventh Adventist pretty much?
Yeah.
That's why you don't eat meat, right?
No, has nothing to do with it. I guess I was baptized in '94. I can't remember when I gave up red meat. I mean, I don't mind it. I don't, as a rule, eat it. But I don't consider it a sin to eat it.
Neither does this friend of mine. He didn't. He just says just a sort of a lifestyle or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessary to be vegetarian, to be a member of any church that I'm familiar with in the Christian denomination. I mean, I eat fish. Jesus ate fish. He just served his disciples fish. To
just seven of them. But there were just 7 of them.
Just 7 what?
7 fish.
Oh, well, that's 2 different stories, I think. Maybe 3. There was one with 5 fish, right? And then when after he was resurrected, they were out fishing, I believe. Peter was fishing, and he told them to come on over and bring some of their fish after he told them where to put the net. And he cooked the fish for them. He had a fire going for them. So I think that's okay. If it's okay with him, it's okay with me.
Wonder how many people were on the earth at that time. You ever wondered about that? Well, how the population is it much different where they're,
I bet there was a whole lot less.
You'd think that the progression would be just people everywhere,
How many
right?
people on the earth now? 7, 8 billion, maybe?
Maybe 8 billion.
So
maybe.
back when I was in medical school 30 years ago, it was 5 billion.
Well, just think if you keep doing that math, we'll be overrun.
We'll be.
Of course, they say
Yeah.
say population is decreasing now, or the increase is decreasing.
I think that's true, but I haven't studied that much lately. I haven't really looked at that or followed it closely. There's so many things you can look at and follow, you know. There's only so many things you can
I know it.
keep up
It's
with.
just so much. It's almost information overload.
It is.
Isn't it?
It is, and I think that's part of what makes living today very, very difficult. And you know, you go to a restaurant and you see a family with 5 kids, and 3 of them are on their cell phones, and the other 2 have an iPad. You know, it's really sad. I respect and admire people who teach their kids how to behave, how to talk, how to have social discourse. You know, how to.
Well, people that were in the 11th and 12th grade during COVID, they're really handicapped with social skills. I think it'll be picked up quick, but I mean, everybody was wearing a mask.
Well,
Couldn't go to school.
that was terrible. That was terrible. I feel bad for kids who were in school at that time. Very bad.
They're going
to be hurt for a long time.
There'll be people writing stories about that. in
They're
books.
doing research articles for sure. Psychology studies. I guess not experiments, but studies.
Studies.
Retrospective studies.
So, Chip, anything else? I think I don't have any notes.
We could talk all day, but yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed you being here. I really have.
Thank you.
I really, really, really liked your dad.
Yeah, I did too.
He was one of my good friends. I miss him. I could call him, and we had several things in common.
Yeah.
And
He was a fun guy to talk to. I kind of wish I could have known him as a friend, but you know, when you're somebody's son, it just changes things.
it
Makes
changes,
difference.
and there's no getting around it.
There's
and
no
we're the
getting-
same. And we're the same way with our kids.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm the same way too. I mean, I know a lot of people who call their dad by their first name, and I find it kind of odd, but that's just how they are. And maybe
That's getting more common, isn't it?
I guess
To
so.
call their dad by
Yeah,
their,
one of my son-in-laws is like that.
one of my good friends calls his dad by his first name.
Yeah. It's
Anyway, to C.A. Kyle,
just to see a Kyle.
a great, great guy.
I didn't.
It's good.